6 months ago, I discovered my husband David was having an affair. The day before, we had just celebrated our son Leo's birthday. I still remember Leo's expectant face when David presented the gift, and David Miller's loving face as he earnestly taught Leo to be a responsible man now that he was a year older. I even posted on social media to commemorate it at my age, with family and a business. I felt my life was complete. But turning around, he used a business meeting as an excuse to spend the night at a hot spring resort with a 20-year-old girl. This year marks my 10th anniversary with David. 2 years into our marriage, we had Leo, and we also opened our own brand of children's dance academy, successful in both career and family life. I was very proud then. Who says having children hinders a woman's career? Look at me. Everything was thriving. After pushing through the first 3 years, our annual income reached millions of dollars. I'd been proud for so many years, and content for so many years, but now my face felt like it had been slapped raw. The night Leo got his gift, he was eager to unbox it and try it out, but couldn't figure out one function. Father and son were engrossed in figuring it out. Thinking I was smart, I opened David's phone to search for the product details and usage instructions. Instead, I saw a text message pop up: "New lingerie arrived." "You gotta go easy tonight." I stood frozen, and then another one popped up. "Don't tear it up like last time." I opened the text messages, but before I could even click on the conversation, the word picture in great text popped up again. My mind went blank, but curiosity killed the cat. I clicked on the conversation, then clicked on the small buffered image. A mirror selfie appeared, showing a young girl wearing a white skimpy, high-cut 1-B swimsuit. She held her phone with both hands, covering her face. Her arms pressed against her prominent chest, concealing her nipples but pushing up a more defined cleavage. Below that was a slender waist, and especially a flat lower abdomen that clearly hadn't carried a child. It was like it was grabbing my ear and shouting, "Look how young I am." I quietly exited the conversation, swiped left to mark it as unread, and put the phone back where I found it. I was surprisingly calm. I didn't need to convince myself staying calm had become a habit. At that moment, father and son were still in the living room analyzing the gift. I went upstairs to the bathroom, lay in the bathtub filled with hot water, and tore open a face mask to put on. I needed space to think. It's laughable, really. This mask is called an ex-boyfriend mask. Was it some kind of omen about divorce? If it weren't for all the years David and I built this foundation together, where would David Miller get the capital to attract such a young girl? If I divorced him, wouldn't I be handing over the empire I helped build? But if I did, Miller would still be using half of my marital assets to support some young girl. Either way, I was losing. By the time I finished my bath and skincare, David Miller was asleep. He lay on the other side of the bed, his back to me. His phone wasn't on the nightstand. I figured he'd hidden it under his pillow. He was sleeping soundly, even snoring. Before tonight, I would have thought my poor husband working so hard. But now, I just felt like 1,000 ducks were quacking in my ear, my heart filled with disgust. I put in my noise-canceling earbuds, curled up on the sofa by the bed, opened my text messages, and found someone in my contacts, someone I just added a few months ago. Their text message name, it's Bonnie. Yes, that was the girl in the white swimsuit. I knew her. I clicked on her conversation. It was only by seeing the chat history that I remembered when I dated her. She was insignificant. I hadn't even bothered to change her contact name. She had sent, "Hello, Miss Miller, I'm Stella. I just interviewed for the dance assistant teacher position." I replied, "Hello." That was our first and only conversation. She interviewed for months ago. She was a good dancer, and capable, but she didn't get the job. That was because I'd run into her in a mall bathroom before the interview. She was probably impatient from waiting in line and spoke without thinking. As a mother and child came out of a stall, Stella muttered, shaking her head, "What are women with kids even doing out? Just causing trouble for everyone." So, slow. I stood behind her in silence, that in my heart. I really wanted to kick her into a stall. I rarely scrolled through social media normally and didn't remember anything Stella had posted. 8 years ago at this time, I was in labor, in agonizing pain. 8 years later, Leo was asleep in his room, clutching his beloved gift in excitement, while I, amidst David's thunderous snoring, was forced to scroll through the Instagram profile of the girl my husband was about to tear off her swimsuit. How strange. Stella made no secret of sharing all their sweet moments publicly, except for revealing who he was. I learned it from her Instagram profile that they had started seeing each other 3 months ago. That day, they had steak, dry-aged steak, the only kind I would eat. Aged for 90 days, sacrificing 40% of the surface meat, leaving only the most exquisite center. It was quite expensive and very delicious. I thought, after working so hard for so many years, eating steak like that wasn't a luxury for me. But Stella at 20-3 ate it effortlessly. They also ordered gila RDO oysters and champagne. It must have cost thousands for the two of them. Half of that money was mine. Stella also got a soft -top convertible, the white body with Bordeaux red roof color scheme that girls love. In the photos, her long legs resting against the car's hoodwork, quite a sight. Half the money for this car was also mine. Stella was from an ordinary family, I knew that from her interview. But on her Instagram profile, she presented herself as a rich, glamorous girl. Thinking that I was effectively a co- sponsor for this rich, glamorous girl, I suddenly let out a bitter laugh in the middle of the night. Now could I still turn the tables? I thought I could. Day broke. I laid out David Miller's clothes, his favorite outfit, a purple polo shirt, navy pants, and a pair of shoes with designer logos monograms. David Miller always thought this made him look younger, and he even liked to pop his polo collar. But to a woman, it was just greasy. I never wanted to call them out on it. I just quietly avoided putting that outfit out for him. But today, whatever makes you happy. He adjusted his clothes, put on his most expensive watch, and told me while looking in a mirror, Mr. Johnson and his group can really drink. I think I'll have to stay over tonight. It was 10 in the morning on a weekend. What kind of business meeting happens at this hour? But my expression was normal. Okay? Don't drink too much. Take care of yourself. If you can make it back tonight, come help Leo with his homework. He agreed readily, a masterful performance. I smiled back, my acting just as good. And then, just as I expected, David Miller drove off in his most expensive Bugatti Divo. As usual, I glanced at the morning newspaper at the store, then took Leo to his tennis lesson. Alone. I drove from the north side to the east side to meet an old college friend that I hadn't seen in ages. The basis of adult networking is mutual benefit, my skills for your resources, my connections for your capital. So even though we hadn't been in touch for years, I knew I could get him to help me this one time. I stood in his company building, walking past one live streaming studio broadcasting booth after another. They were filled with the popular attractive online broadcasters. My target was these male broadcasters. But after looking at a whole bunch of handsome guys, none of them satisfied me. One or two had good looks, but the desire in their eyes was too obvious. My dear Miss Miller, you certainly have high standards now. How about we grab some food first? You can look at the people passing by and come back to choose later. You must be overwhelmed from looking just now. I smiled and nodded. Okay. Just as we stepped into the elevator, David Miller sent me a message. As I pressed the close door button, I listened to his fake voice message, "Don't wait up for me. I won't be back tonight." Not coming back is fine. Just don't die there, or all the assets would be mine. The irritating voice message had just finished playing when I heard a loud voice wait up. I held the elevator, waiting, and saw a tall figure walk in about 6'3". His whole vibe was that of a wild, attractive man but he had a pair of sad, puppy eyes and prominent canine teeth. That kind of contradiction in a man is what most strongly arouses a woman's desire for exploration. Then the man politely spoke, "Hello, ma'am." And turns out he was a broadcaster too. The elevator arrived. He held the door with one hand, stepping aside to let us out first. You could tell he was good at taking care of women. This was the one I wanted. Someone this good, why didn't you introduce him to me? Absolutely not. My friend's voice suddenly dropped. You said you wanted to shoot promotional posters for your academy, but you didn't pick any of the dance academy graduates we just saw. I can pretty much guess what you're planning. If that's your intention, Jake is absolutely not suitable. Then he leaned in and said seriously, "He has an STD." I was confused for a long time, and then I laughed for a full minute. So he thought I was a rich woman coming to pick up a gigolo? Heaven favors those who strive. The problem that had been giving me a headache all morning suddenly had a breakthrough. Jake's full name was Jacob Roberts. He was 20-7. After junior college, he worked in bars, then became a broadcaster. Honestly, his methodology for dealing with the opposite sex came from practical experience. I got Jake's number and arranged to meet him 3 days later. On the third day, he appeared right on time. I looked him up and down. His clothes probably cost less than $100 total, but he was using the latest iPhone. A smart kid, really. Most young girls wouldn't know good quality clothes, but they could definitely spot an expensive phone instantly. I first took him to Gallery and bought him a few outfits. They were just plain white tee- shirts, but none cost less than $300. Then we got his hair done, a celebrity- style cut. Jake didn't refuse at all. He carried the clothes, looking almost expectant. I hadn't explained anything yet, so I didn't know what he was hoping for. After that, I took him to an apartment the agent had prepared in advance. It was a spacious apartment, over 2,000 square feet, just a 5-minute walk from the downtown area, with a monthly rent of $4,000 th. From the moment we entered the building, Jake looked completely lost. After we went inside, the agent described the apartment and the rent. I didn't respond directly. Instead, I turned to Jake and asked, "Do you like it?" He stared at me, his face full of shock, and after a long pause, he nodded. Ugh. I turned to the agent and said, "Could you give us a moment to talk alone?" The agent was sharp. He left the apartment and made sure to close the door securely behind him. I took out a stack of documents and walked over to Jake. I put the papers in his hand. I need you to do something for me. Pretend to be a rich kid and win over the beautiful girl in these documents. This apartment is for you to use. I'll cover all expenses. And if you succeed, I'll give you a $30,000 bonus. Jake looked bewildered, completely not expecting this was why I brought him here. Then I took out a photo of Stella and held it up in front of a stunned Jake. See? When Jake's eyes landed on the photo, a flicker of expectation was clearly visible. Right. Beauty is a weapon, and not just for the person who possesses it. Others can use it too. Jake seemed afraid I would see through his thoughts. He hesitated for a long time before agreeing to open the door and call the agent back in. I'll take it, but only for 3 months. The agent looked hesitant until I said, I'll give you an extra $3,000 commission. Then he agreed. He turned to Jake and emphasized, remember to finish within 3 months. Okay, Jake replied. That single word marked the official start of our cooperation. The next day, I took Jake to rent a Gallardo, a sports car that fit the rich kid persona, but was nowhere near the same league as the Bugatti Divo. The moment Jake got the keys, his eyes lit up. After finishing the paperwork, Jake couldn't wait to take me for a spin. We stopped on a tree-minus-line street. He took out his phone to take a picture, but hesitant with me there, he didn't dare take an obvious selfie. I said, don't post anything you can show off on any social media. Jake sheepishly put his phone away. Okay, he said. Then we drove directly to the gym below where Stella worked. It was a high-end gym, even the exterior walls were all glass. I sat in the cafe across the street and could see people sweating it out inside. It was 6 o'clock. Stella should be arriving soon. Stella liked to play games. David Miller wasn't her only target. This gym was one of her regular hunting grounds. Stella was running on a treadmill in overly tight workout clothes. Her face was beautiful, her pure, but her body was incredibly lethal. The curve of her glutes outline made her workout pants made every man walking past the treadmill stop and stare for a long time. She hadn't been running long when she saw a young guy on the treadmill next to her pretending to work out. In less than a minute, his eyes were glued to Stella. Seeing that the guy trying to hit on her was young and dressed plainly, clearly not well minus off, she gave him a cold, dismissive look. Just then, Jake walked over and started exercising on the treadmill next to Stella's. Stella glanced at Jake, then took a second look. She was clearly pleased with his appearance. Meanwhile, Jake kept running and listening to music for half an hour, not giving Stella a single glance. This, paradoxically, sparked Stella's interest. Who says only men have a desire to conquer? Women do too. After finishing his run, Jake went to the water cooler to get water. Stella walked over. I thought she'd just say a simple hi, but I didn't expect Stella to accidentally spill a cup of ice water on Jake. She's a pro. Then the two of them went down to the underground parking lot together. Before we came, I had specifically told Jake to park the Gallardo next to the Bugatti Divo David had lent Stella. I figured when they walked over to the cars together, Stella would be even more thrilled. In less than 2 hours, Jake had Stella's contact information, and she was the one who had initiated adding him. During the first week after Jake and Stella became contacts, David Miller's sneaky behavior remained frequent and showed no signs of slowing down. The second week, Stella actively asked Jake to go to Disney. When I heard that, I almost laughed. So calculating, and she goes to such an innocent place. It turned out it was crowded at Disney, and Stella's Chanel bag got accidentally scratched. So Jake, using it as an excuse to apologize, took her directly to the store and bought her a Lady Deer costing over $6,000 th. Stella's joy was written all over her face. That night, Jake gentlemanly drove Stella home, specifically dropping her off just at the entrance to the building neighborhood and pretending to leave, because there had been a persistent admirer waiting for Stella downstairs. His name was Mr. Smith. He was a purchasing manager at a tech company in the same building as Stella, in his 30s, not rich, but very good at putting on airs. He had spent a fortune to hook Stella initially. However, after Stella received several luxury gifts from him, she discovered he was a broke guy who couldn't even afford a down payment on a house, and she ruthlessly dumped him. Mr. Smith wasn't an easy person either. He had been waiting for Stella for several days. When he finally saw her return, he immediately went out to harass her. He was there to demand money back from Stella, asking her to return the 3 designer bags he had bought her in transfers totaling $1,500 th. He grabbed Stella's arm and threatened to call the police if she didn't return the money. The area was in a busy district and there were still quite a few people on the street at 11 o'clock, so Stella wasn't scared. On the contrary, she adopted a haughty posture and retorted sarcastically, "Do you even know what a gift is? Once you give it to me, it's mine. Stop bothering me endlessly. I could even report you for sexual harassment." Mr. Smith was indeed provoked. He grabbed Stella and started dragging her towards a darker area. Jake, who had been watching from the shadows, instantly rushed over, pulled Mr. Smith away, and asked Stella with concern, "Are you okay?" After seeing Jake arrive, Stella's acting skills suddenly went up a notch. She still had her Minnie Mouse ear headband on, looking exactly like a poor girl being harassed by a shameless ex. After Jake manly chased away Mr. Smith, Stella asked tearfully, "Why did you come back?" Jake replied, "I wanted to make sure you got upstairs safely." No matter how experienced Stella was, that one line broke through her facade and brought out some genuine emotion. While comforting Stella, Jake expressed concern that her place might not be safe since she was being watched, and suggested she could stay with him for a few days. Stella was naturally overjoyed. After a show of feigned reluctance, she went with Jake to the luxurious, spacious apartment, over 2,000 square feet. At 2 in the morning, Jake reported on his progress did it. Jake didn't disappoint me. From their first meeting to completely ensnaring Stella, it only took about a month. In this whole performance, he remained dedicated. Even with his good looks and surrounded by countless temptations, he focused only on Stella. He already had a handsome face, and with the financial support I provided various bags, jewelry, luxury cosmetics. I supplied everything as if money were an object. The gold digger Stella was indeed completely dazzled. She had no idea that the bags she received later were all high-minus quality fakes replicas. She even reluctantly spent money buying Jake a few things in return. But Stella was always shrewd. She had already established a clear relationship with Jake, yet she was still involved with the unsuspecting David Miller, playing both sides to make money and destroying a family. As a mistress, the other woman, she could switch between her roles seamlessly without revealing a single flaw. A true master indeed. I almost admired Stella. When Stella's sickeningly sweet voice message, "Calling Jake honey," was played aloud, we were in a quiet cafe, planning the next steps. Jake didn't hesitate in front of me and played the next few voice messages aloud. In the messages, Stella complained that her boss was awful, deliberately making things difficult for her and causing her trouble. She mentioned 3 times during this that her current job was annoying. It was a clear hint. Was she asking me to support her? Jake asked me helplessly. Should I say yes? After this period of working together, Jake also understood the whole situation. He knew I was the original wife whose family Stella had intruded upon. "I feel a bit bad about your money," he said. "She's spending yours over there, and she'd be spending yours over here too?" Jake's comment made me laugh. It was true, I hadn't even thought of that. I leaned back, my gaze on Jake's phone, and said, "If she doesn't want to work, then she doesn't have to. Let's support her." That weekend, David Miller was going to Denver for a conference. Stella would be there too. On the day of the exhibition, Stella was arm with David Miller, strolling through the venue like a sweet couple. Since they were out of town, they weren't hiding anything in their behavior. I stood in a corner of the hall, watching the scene. My emotions were completely flat. Jake stood beside me, looking at me. "Let's go," he said. That night, at the hotel where they were staying, Jake appeared downstairs with a bouquet of roses, as planned. "Baby, I'm downstairs at your hotel. What room number are you in?" Before leaving, Stella had used a business trip as an excuse. To cover her tracks, she had even proactively told Jake the hotel address. But she didn't expect Jake, who is usually so compliant, to suddenly show up. Stella, fresh out of the shower, saw the text message and panicked. Wrapped in a towel, clutching her phone, she quickly called Jake. "Why are you suddenly here?" On the phone, Jake was perfectly composed. "I realized I can't be without you. I missed you after just one day." Stella, however, turned pale. Her man's sweet words were putting immense pressure on her right now. I don't know how she explained it to David Miller, but she quickly got dressed and went down to the lobby to meet Jake. In the hotel lobby, despite both having complicated thoughts, they shared a fiery kiss. Jake looked impatient to go up to Stella's room. Stella said she was sharing a room with a colleague and told Jake to get another room. "I still have some things to finish with my colleague. It'll probably take 2 or 3 hours. I'll come find you later, okay?" Jake naturally didn't refuse and waited obediently in another room. Not even Mission Impossible was this exciting. Stella was more cunning than a spy movie protagonist. When Stella went downstairs, she and David Miller had only been in the room for 18 minutes. They shouldn't have had time to do anything yet. So when she went back up, she would definitely have to appease the old man first. Jake watched Stella, then turned and followed her, seeing her enter the room. 20 minutes later, the doorbell rang. The roses Jake had specially ordered for Stella were delivered by a server. Jake stood beside him looking happy, like he was about to surprise his girlfriend. But then a man's angry roar came from inside. "Who is it?" The server froze for a moment, glanced at Jake, not daring to ask or say anything else. He just said his professional line, "Hello, I'm with room service. I don't need service. Go away." The server didn't know what to do and could only look awkwardly at Jake. At this moment, Jake's face had turned cold, as planned. He angrily kept pressing the doorbell. David Miller opened the door, looking annoyed, and questioned Stella, "Did you order room service?" The two men came face for the first time, staring at each other. David Miller, especially, looked completely clueless. Ignoring Stella's pale face, Jake began his masterful performance. With a cold expression, he threw the flowers at them, then swung a punch at David Miller. David Miller was no match for him, of course, and was knocked to the ground in a few blows. Then Jake glared at Stella and walked away. It was a collision between the Titanic and a yacht, and Stella, of course, chose to save the Titanic. She didn't even care that she was wearing a bathrobe and ran downstairs. By the time she caught up to him downstairs, she found Jake, who had deliberately not gone far, smoking with a dejected look on his face. He looked more like the real victim than I did. Stella, after all, had strong psychological resilience. Even with undeniable evidence, she could still make up a story without batting an eye. In her story, she pretended to be the most innocent victim, who had only gone astray because of her poor family background. What she called playing both sides was just returning the favor to a boss who had been very supportive of her career. She claimed she had no feelings for David Miller, and it was he who shamelessly pursued her. "Honey," she pleaded to Jake, "you have to believe me. He's a major client of the company. I didn't tell you because I was afraid you'd misunderstand. But I never expected him to trick me into coming to the hotel like this. If you hadn't come just now, I really would have had to." Stella, like a weak, pitiful bunny, sobbed in Jake's arms. Jake continued his act, pretending to be convinced. "Really?" he said. "And then call him right now and tell him you have a boyfriend and tell him to get lost. But he's a major client for the company." "What about my job?" Stella was still pretending. Jake went along with it. "So what if you lose your job? I'll support you." Hearing this, Stella's face lit up. Although she still hesitated slightly, to keep Jake, she had to call David Miller with a cold tone. I guess David Miller on the other end of the line must have been furious and enraged. He probably would have smashed the TV in the room. He always liked to smash divorces when he got angry. After returning, Stella quit her job. And to make the arrangement of her being supported more convincing, on the first day she moved in, I had Jake give her $12,000 pocket money, promising that if she behaved well, she would get more money later. Seeing the deposit notification on her bank card, Stella was indeed ecstatic. She immediately pulled Jake out to go on a shopping spree. After they left, I went in with my spare key. Only when I saw that the things I had prepared earlier were all there did I feel at ease. While the plan seemed foolproof so far, Jake was a born actor. Sometimes even I couldn't tell if he was faking. A hint of unease lingered in my heart. It wasn't that I hadn't considered the possibility of him turning against me. After all, what good intentions could a gigolo-kept man possibly have? As for Stella, I had to admit she was indeed resourceful manipulative. With such a strong opponent, I had to have a backup plan to ensure my scheme was foolproof and without any glitches. After David Miller came back, he was in a low mood, constantly checking his phone, looking miserable. I knew exactly what was going on and felt nothing but content. Eamon in his 40s actually thought he'd found true love. It was embarrassing just thinking about it. He took his mistress, the other woman, on a business trip, only to find out she not only had a boyfriend, but she'd also been beaten up by him. He couldn't swallow that. So he went directly to confront Stella, but found she had already blocked him. David Miller was completely enraged by Stella and reported his car stolen. Yes, that Bugatti Diva was under David Miller's name. At least he wasn't completely stupid fool as she knew to keep important assets in his name. Stella had to go to the police station. Jake naturally found an excuse to go along. When Jake called me, Stella was sharply mocking David Miller. "You gave me that car. I didn't steal it. Why should I give back something you gave me? Look at yourself. I'm 20 years younger than you. Why, oh, you were the one chasing Emmy even." Sobbing. I didn't hear what she said after that, but I knew Stella wasn't saying anything nice. After hanging up, I suddenly felt empty. Stella had completely left David Miller. Seeing my husband, whom I had built a life with for so many years, being made such a mess of by a young girl, I felt no victor's satisfaction, only a sigh for the sadness of the world. But the chess pieces were already set, even I couldn't call a halt now. "David Miller, you betrayer, this isn't even your lowest point yet." I stayed out late that day and didn't get back until evening. When I returned, David Miller was in the living room, slumped in despair and drinking. I watched him coldly for a long moment, then sat down across from him. "David Miller," I said, "let's talk." David Miller opened his bleary, drunken eyes and looked at me, seeming not little lost. What were we going to talk about? I threw a stack of photos directly onto the table. "Are you having an affair?" David Miller instantly panicked, as expected. He glanced at me and instinctively blurted out, "Honey, listen to me." David Miller's face went white in an instant. For a long time, he couldn't say a single word, his eyes filled with apology as he looked at me. "David Miller, we've been together for 10 years. I never thought it would come to this." I spoke, tears streaming down my face, choking up several times. The last time David Miller had seen me cry was in the delivery room. Just as I expected, he panicked. After a long pause, he suddenly knelt down, grabbing my legs and confessing, "Honey, I was wrong. I lost my mind. I was a terrible person. I promise I will never do it again." David Miller's tone was sincere. He even slapped himself hard across the face. I didn't answer, just kept crying. This was something I had learned from Stella. David Miller begged me all night. I knew he was sincere, but I also knew that men quickly forget once the trouble is over. That night, alone in the bathtub, I sent Jake a text message, "You can start the final step." When Stella's call came, I wasn't surprised. At that moment, David Miller and I were taking Leo to the aquarium to see the dolphins. Even though I had stopped having any physical intimacy with him since I found out about his affair, we never neglected Leo. Since our official confrontation last time, David Miller had changed. No matter how busy work was, he would make time to spend with Leo and me. He would even lean close and whisper in my ear, "Honey, did you change your lotion? This smells nice." If I had changed to a new body lotion a few days earlier, he never would have noticed things like that before. David Miller showed a flicker of panic when he saw the call, but quickly cut it off ruthlessly. He then held Leo and told him what fish were swimming overhead. Last week, the final step I had given Jake was to disappear from Stella's life. It was a persona I had deliberately created for him. After he vanished, there would be no trace. I canceled the things I had rented for Jake, closed his phone account, transferred $30,000 to him, and had him go stay in Florida for a while. Stella couldn't find him and then discovered that the luxury items were all high-quality fakes replicas. She finally realized she had been tricked, but she quickly bounced back, hoeing down countless backups to go, as long as she was still pretty enough. And David Miller was the idiot jerk she tried to win back. Too bad David Miller didn't answer her call. When we got home that night, Stella was still persistently sending texts. As David Miller came out after showering, he showed no sign of evasion. He opened the text right in front of me and handed me his phone. Stella had really put in a lot of effort. She even claimed she was pregnant, and Miller's baby. I looked at David Miller and didn't say anything, asking with my eyes what he was going to do next. David Miller thought for a moment, then stood in front of me and dialed her back. His voice was colder than I had ever heard it. "You know perfectly well whose child it is. If you insist on saying it's mine, I'll pay for an abortion, but you will have nothing to do with me." Then he turned and blocked all of Stella's contact information. Just a few days later, while David Miller was playing with Leo in the living room, he received another text message. "If you don't come see me today, I'll expose all your dirty laundry. We'll both go down." A few seconds later, another one followed. "And tomorrow night at 9, I'll wait for you at Lakeview Park. If you don't come, I'll jump." He had never seen this number before, but I knew it was Stella. To prove his innocence, David Miller took me with him. Stella was indeed waiting at a less crowded spot near the shore. I stayed in the car watching. Stella was very agitated. I could even clearly hear her yelling, "Then you just wait. Nobody's going to have an easy time." Then she followed David Miller's gaze and saw me in the car. Furious, she ran to the passenger window and hurled insults at me, saying all sorts of nasty things. A mistress, the other woman cursing out the original wife. I don't know where she got the nerve. Maybe she was just stupid. But I wasn't angry at all. Seeing Stella's ugly look, her eyes red and swollen, her hair messy, her face red and contorted with grievance, resentment, anger was satisfying enough. I was grateful again for my calmness when I discovered the affair. Otherwise, I might have looked like Stella did right then. After David Miller and I drove away, he kept apologizing endlessly. He had seen me being cursed out profusely just now. As the instigator, he was now filled with guilt, but his apologies were meaningless, constantly echoing in the cramped car, making me sick. "It's over. Don't think about it." I gave him a perfunctory reply and he finally shut up. Seeing that David Miller was indifferent, Stella decided to come and harass me. She called me on the text app. The moment I answered, Stella's voice was full of accusation. "Are you happy now that you've watched me lose everything?" I laughed and retorted, "When you were being a mistress, the other woman, and breaking up someone else's family, did you not think about this outcome?" But Stella showed no remorse. Instead, she scoffed with disdain. "So, what if I thought about it? All that matters is I got what I wanted. I'm calling you today to let you know I still have some evidence of your husband's affair. If you don't want to risk the company you built together from scratch, give me $5 million. Once the money is in my account, I'll leave immediately and won't bother you again." I felt like I was hearing a joke, especially from Stella. Even as she pretended to be calm, she couldn't hide the trembling in her voice. "Honey," I said, "who do you think you're going to send it to? My colleagues at the company? Our clients? Our parents? Honey, do you not have a brain? Is David Miller the only person in the world who's had an affair? What kind of stir do you think your little bit of evidence will cause? We're not a publicly traded company. I could just control the narrative with a public statement and stabilize the situation. As for you, I've already investigated you thoroughly. Do you think releasing the video of David Miller's affair would harm him more? Or would it be a bigger bombshell if I posted videos of you sleeping with David Miller? And then with Jake? I didn't mention that Jake was my arrangement. I just told her I had investigated her. Who would reveal that much information just to provoke a crazy person? Stella was clearly scared. I even heard her sharp intake of breath. You. For a long moment, it was like she was choked, unable to say anything. My heart instantly felt completely satisfied. I remained silent. Planning for so long, my counterattack was as decisive as ever. She wasn't even a worthy opponent. The sobbing in my ear grew louder, but I didn't feel pity. This girl was crying only for her loss, not out of remorse. I am not a saint. On the contrary, I am just an ordinary person who is vengeful, holds grudges, and gets revenge. One last thing, your Jake has seen a urologist doctor. He has an STD. Then I ended the conversation and blocked her. When I got home, David Miller had already prepared a table full of food, a meal, waiting for me. After I sat down, I just kept staring at him. He started to get unnerved by my gaze. Honey, what's wrong? Stella just called me. She cursed for a long time, but that's not important. What's important is she told me she has an STD. I slightly altered my conversation with Stella and recounted it to this idiot jerk of a middle-aged man who lusted after young girls. David Miller was completely frozen. I watched every single one of his expressions, not wanting to miss a thing. Stella had been having sexual relations with both Jake, who had an STD, and David Miller at the same time. How could David Miller not get infected? This man had always been arrogant, caring only about his own pleasure and not others, and never bothering with protection. David Miller couldn't calm down for a long time. With a sweep of his arm, he overturned the entire table full of food, a meal. Bitch. You got him, bitch. Muttering curses about Stella or Jake to himself, I didn't say another word and went upstairs. 3 days later, my secondary credit card received a text message. It was from Jake, who was already back from Florida. I didn't reply. He called me too, but I didn't answer. I didn't know what he wanted to say, and I didn't want to know. I took out the SIM card phone card and threw it into the trash garbage bin.